You are watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Bruno Edgar Tumuheirwe, and you are welcome to this episode. It's a wonderful Monday, and when it comes to Issues at Hand, we have a very many discussions to get into, and this morning's discussion is very important. This is about things that are happening very recently in our country. But of course, Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel Entebbe. Yes, you can have a splendid time. I know many of you enjoyed who went there over the weekend. You have many testimonies. Please feel free to share those testimonies on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube accounts, because we want to hear what your experience was like at the hotel. But we also want those who are still thinking about which hotel experience best suits them to make up their mind, because Protea Hotel Entebbe is the place for you. It has a swimming pool, it has a gym, it has a spa, it has a wonderful hotel rooms. There are wonderful conference halls as well for those of you who want to carry out conferences this week. So please be wise and make a reservation and booking today. The number is on your screen. Now, when it comes to today's discussion here on Issues at Hand, we have a couple of things to get into, starting with having a spotlight on the issue of the iron sheets that has become a big scandal here in Uganda, and there's a lot going on. Where are these iron sheets coming from? Who is dispersing them? To whom are they supposed to be dispersed? Why weren't they dispersed? And why is it that some family members of some leaders have been found selling these iron sheets? Very big issue, and it continues to show that there's a bit of headlocking between the office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness when it comes to carrying out that role of dispersing relief to Ugandans. So there's so much to get into, and with me to tackle this issue is a well-seasoned politician and researcher. That's Mr. Christopher Lwanga, who is a politician and head of research and documentation at Uganda People's Congress. Thank you for coming back to Issues at Hand. Good morning to you.
Thanks very much, Comrade Bruno, for this wonderful invitation to contribute to the current national issues. But before I proceed, I have to convey my warm greetings from our party president, Honorable Jimmy Akena, MP, Lira East, the fraternity of UPC at Uganda House, party headquarters, the fraternity of UPC in the country, and the entire world in the diaspora. I'm delighted to be here on their behalf and to deliberate and contribute to national issues. And special thanks and appreciation to Family TV for hosting me almost, I think, for the fourth time now in a row. Thanks for this wonderful gesture you have given us to air out our voice on key pertinent issues.
Now, the pertinent issue of the day today is this whole scandal behind the iron sheets. Talking about your voice, what is your take on this saga?
I think anything which is negative is not good for the country, and is not good for the government, and it is not good for the people. Here we are having a situation which we are interpreting in various dimensions, and the various dimensions are showing that top leaders are greedy, are selfish, are less mindful. But we fail to go to the core root of all this kind of situation. I may say this is just a tip of the iceberg, and it was unfortunate or fortunate that the whole situation got exposed. But what of other situations which have not come to the fore? Okay. Now, for me and the people I work with and the people I represent are looking at the iron sheet saga in another perspective entirely. And our perspective is the government since 1980s, late 1980s and early 1990s has been working on a program of devolution of power from central to local government. Now, this devolution of power has seen several districts, several sub-units created or balkanized, if you use the other language, and a lot of resources allocated from central government. However, it seems the devolution of powers to local units has not taken shape. If it had taken shape, the issue of iron roofs would not have arisen, because we expect Karamoja sub-region to be formidable as a local unit and ready to handle and participate in its affairs entirely. But ever since Karamoja started having problems, some are colonial, some are post-colonial, you don't see Karamojong people or Karamoja as a sub-region coming out to determine its destiny. Other people always decide the destiny of Karamoja on their own behalf and mess up a lot of issues, even without consulting the Karamoja people, the geography, the history. Okay? As we are talking now, Karamoja may not even need the type of goats which got missing, because the goats are exotic, and Karamoja essentially is a semi-arid sort of hot environment for such goats. I'm not digressing away from the question. Now, when it comes to the issue of iron sheets, where is Karamoja in the picture? Karamoja is not anywhere in the picture, apart from knowing that the iron sheets were destined for Karamoja. And this is not only a problem of Karamoja, because the devolved powers, the devolution powers are not really unique, are not really effective. So many things end up on the way, and are diverted. This is not the first time. We have seen COVID relief diverted. Now it is iron sheets. The next time you are going to hear another element. At some other time it is salaries being diverted. So we need to go back and we see how we can reinforce local governments to be very, very effective, very responsive, very accountable, such that when they are accountable, responsive, and they can participate fully, they can even have a determination of what is their priority and how can they make use of the priorities. Because apart from this saga which has happened on Karamoja, Karamoja is one of the regions which contribute, or which potentially will contribute to Uganda to reach another level, because all assorted minerals, they have them. The livestock, they have first class. The wildlife, they have it. Now, where do they go wrong? Okay, it is the central government messing up the local government. And the local government has to be given an opportunity to stand on its legs. But the way things are, we are still very far away. Maybe 50% or less than 50% very effective. That's why you see that a lot of issues between central government and local government are not going on smoothly.
Actually, on that very issue, is that the foundation of these gaps that have been seen? Because now we had, for instance, the finance minister Matia Kasaija said he received iron sheets. He didn't know where from. One set was from his personal assistant, another one was from a political aide of his. Then we have had the minister of Karamoja, who has come out to say, well, she didn't know she had no instruction on how to disperse these iron sheets, but yet these iron sheets are being given out to certain ministers. No one knows from whom, and no one knows where they are going, apart from the ones that we know should be going to Karamoja. And then we're also seeing an issue of a bit of a clash between the office of the Prime Minister and then the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, because both have the mandate to give relief to Ugandans, but we are seeing the Minister for Disaster Preparedness, Honorable Hilary Onek, coming out to say that the Office of the Prime Minister is usurping his powers. So is it just, like you've said, a function of the central government lacking proper structures when it comes to helping out the local government, or is it a wider issue even when it comes to the central government?
Actually, the problem is much wider. I was privileged through my reading culture. One gentleman in London who was formerly an operative of Save Uganda movement, Comrade Jack Alecho Oita, he wrote a book entitled Personal Merit Politics, Its Origin. It is where I found that answer. And the answer, he traced this element of respect of institutions, this element of pushing for individual interests at whatever cost in that book. And he traces it to have started in Uganda, more especially during the Moshi Conference in March 1979, when we are thinking of the immediate government to take over after Idi Amin. According to him, people started jostling individual interests at the expense of the greater goal, and saying even this leader should not come near the corridor, near the veranda of where we are meeting from. And yet that leader had contributed a lot to the entire effort of anti-Amin struggle, leave alone the independence struggle of Uganda. If we can go to such an extent, okay, of saying, no, we are blocking you, we are fostering our interests, we are doing what? And then a government is formed, and we see that individualism pushing the agenda, the national agenda. These are the fruits we are reaping. Even if now you belong to NRM, even if you belong to DP, there is that greater element or UPC where you want to push, okay, as a personal agenda. Now that thing is working so much in the government, and that's why you are seeing there is a crash in a normal situation. You have the hierarchy of the president, you have the hierarchy of the vice president, and then you have the hierarchy of the prime minister. Essentially, the prime minister is the overall supervisor of ministers and the ministries. There would be no way how you crash with your overall supervisor. In the list, you can crash with somebody very junior. Now, it means that the whole structure has to be advised that you people, let us go back for orientation. The president represents this, the vice represents this, the prime minister represents this. And within the success of the government, we have created ministries to handle issues, okay? The disaster preparedness is always very quick at coming out and complaining. And you ask yourself, where have you been? Okay, where have you been? We have known how government machinery works, but where have you been? Why are you always complaining? It means there is a missing link. Okay, then at the same time also, you find that we need to borrow some leaf. Here I may use the example of Zambia, because I lived in Zambia since 1988 December to 2006, and I worked there. So I understand the system of their local government. The system of their local government during the days of Kaunda, it had a governor on the head of each province. That governor now was stripped, and below there is a state minister who is in charge of a state. And below the state minister there is a permanent secretary who is the technocrat. Then there are several departments within the structure. So you find that the structure is so efficient. Now here, when it comes to our local structures. Of course, we have the district, Kawo and what have you. But the old system used to have somebody they called a DC. And the DC would really mean real power. And you couldn't misinterpret a DC. And within the DC structure, we had the DC who is in charge of administration, who is in charge of intelligence, who is in charge of what. And everything was in one block. And then key departments here and there. But now, when you go to a district, even like us politicians who hold rallies, you are sent to several offices to have your participation of a rally to go through. And one office may accept, another one may not accept. So there is too much duplication, which at times causes confusion. And you remember, all these districts we are talking about used to be one big thing. Now they have broken it into various parts, and it is very difficult to get the right manpower to run those various parts because they are so demanding. And when again you struggle to get the right manpower, local dynamics, local politics comes in, where people will say, us we are Wachiso, we want to appoint our Wachiso people. Some are relatives, some are friends. So you find that also nepotism is pulling the local governments. But this nepotism is not in isolation of the central government. It can overlap. So you find that such overlaps are running down the local governments and are making central governments to end up into various scandals. So we need to streamline things, and where possible, we may need to amalgamate. When you amalgamate these district councils, small district units, so you give them capacity, you give them a stronger voice. But now most of these small units don't have a stronger voice, and that's how they are maneuvered. They are outplayed at their local game.
Now that is true, and a lot needs to be done when it comes to reworking the structure of how government's projects are implemented, especially when it comes to the devolution from central government to the local government. But the other question here is, on this very issue of the Iron Sheet saga, is it a question of integrity when it comes to leadership? Because for example, Honorable Marriage Tutu had the mandate. There was no bureaucracy there. The Iron Sheets were delivered. She just had to ensure that there was follow-up in terms of giving those Iron Sheets to the beneficiary. And that's why there are some people out there who are calling for her resignation. Do you think that this is so? Because it shows that there is a bit of a failure in terms of integrity from leaders.
I take you to what I said first. Personality, politics. Now, let us face it. We are all Ugandans, and we have lived in Uganda, and we are operating in Uganda. Any person who has been elected in a political office, not appointed, let that person be honest and declare that my political party helped me financially 80% or 90% or 95%. You will discover, Comrade Bruno, that all political parties rarely go beyond 10% in helping their candidates to reach there. And there is nobody who wants to go to an elective office and you serve one term. You need to serve about 2 or 3 terms, or even up to the time the body cannot allow. Now, that means from the word go you are in the office, you have to prepare for the rainy day. You have to prepare for that day. Okay, now you find that most of the people who may have received the iron sheets are having it on their mind that 2026 is not very far. To you, who is not in elective politics, it is near. To those who are in elective politics, I mean it is far. To those who are in elective politics, it is very near. And you need to do things which keep you relevant. However much you may term them to lack integrity. However much you may term them to be self-centered or selfish. This is the background we are coming from. All political parties are not helping their candidates. I'm not saying I'm supporting what has happened. I'm simply helping listeners and others to brainstorm it and to say, this pressure we are putting on candidates to fund themselves, how do we harmonize it? How do we decommercialize politics? How can we remove that? Because it is what is tiring anybody in elective office.
At the end of the day, that may be true, and of course that's a big issue, because we understand there are a lot of people who are fighting for elective office end up getting loans and whatnot. Now they have to repay those debts. However, at the core of the issue is, like you said, a leader. At the end of the day, this is a leader who is in office. This is a leader who has many opportunities. Some have businesses, many have businesses, many are they're even paid handsomely by government, they have cars and whatnot. Can't you keep away from that and focus on the issue of saying this project is running and I have to ensure that this project is a success?
My dear.
Or is it an issue of implementation, especially when it comes, for example, in PDM we have seen that for some of the rollout, when it comes to the rollout, the leaders were not aware of the beneficiaries of this rollout. Is it also the same case here, that because there was that lack of knowing who the beneficiaries of the iron sheets were, that gap was opened up to leaders doing things without integrity?
Where you are heading to, I understand. But let me say this, to still make the point more clear. Okay? An MP at this material time, when there is food scarcity in the country, is a granary. Either in granary in terms of actual food, or granary from the pockets. An MP now, much as the results are out and our children are getting enrolled, an MP has become a benefactor. I don't know how many people. Okay, the weather and the rains have not been good, and this is how our friends have been caught up. You people in the media, you have heard that in Bukomba Simbi, 20 houses have been brought down. In this area, floods have been heavy. You haven't had a concerted effort from the Prime Minister's office or government to go and to attend to those various parts of the country which have been hit. The person on the front line is a minister. I mean, is the MP, and maybe other local leaders. Now, this pressure is too much on them. All the boreholes have got damaged. Now, to cushion that pressure, it causes problems. And it causes you to look for other solutions which may not be very decent. I still go back to Zambia. Zambia has pumped money at a constituency level, which is known as the Constituency Development Fund. It is a substantial amount of money where the MPs can even get money for scholarships, get money for repair of this. It is quite substantial. Okay, but here the Constituency Development Fund was removed, and as it was removed, the pressure got on MPs, and our people now, we are told that an MP is supposed to deliver A, B, C, D.
Supposed to make roads, supposed
yes,
to give you, and attend your wedding, give you contributions.
Yes, and bury. He doesn't do that. You get another person who is in a position to do all that. Now, that is beyond the imagination, and anybody in the sitting government was supposed to jump in and say, no, I have to protect the integrity of my government. Don't push the MP to fundraise for your wedding, to do the burial, to do the graduation, to do road construction, to do bridge construction, all that, okay? And you pity them. Such a type of pressure will make you receive those iron sheets as a gift from God. I'm sorry to use that, but you are going to see it as a miracle, as a relief, okay? When in actual fact, if central government was working, local government was working, they would be picking out concerns of people, needs of people, and sorting them out. And an MP or a local leader or somebody in central government would be just a link, a connectivity. But now you find that you have to scoop, and that scooping is what is causing a problem. But the root cause of it is commercialization of politics. The root cause of commercialization of politics is the individual merit we planted in ourselves. Patriotism, nationalism is lacking. We don't look at those issues in that bigger platform. We look at them selfishly. So we need to go back to patriotism, to nationalism, not as catchwords, as things we breathe, as things we move with, as things we practice, as things we cherish. Once we achieve that, then these other issues will become more easy to sort out. And you will not have as much corruption scandals as we are having. Because you will be cautious, you will be remembering that nationalism demands me to behave like this. Why am I so negative? Okay? And even your subjects, your voters, will judge you on that. This one is very weak in nationalism. We should do, is not mobilizing us for a common good, for a public good very well. He's not. We drop him. He's mindful of his family. He's mindful of his stomach. Okay, and we start seeing the bigger picture. But now, it is still difficult when politics is too much commercialized. The last research I did on rural constituencies for an MP to make it, including primaries and what have you, needed something like 500 million. That is $500 million. And if you have a rival who has also mobilized the same amount, the thing goes up to something beyond. Then for you to survive in these constituencies, whether in Kampala or in rural, you have to spend between 30 million to 50 million a month. That is very outrageous. You don't do it, you know that you have signed your death warrant come 2026. So, whoever is in government, whoever is an opinion leader, let us address it. A moment we allow politics to be commercialized, a moment we allow individual merit mentality, personal merit mentality to overrun our thinking, we are going to tear the country. And we shall not only be stealing iron sheets, we shall be stealing even other things. And we shall even make the prisons full if you are to arrest and to convict. Okay? But I'm not saying I'm supporting that. My call, let us go back to nationalism. Let us go back to rebuilding the country. We have had governments which have never had such type of scandals. And when such scandals came, they were investigated up to the end to find out the real causes. Okay? And nobody would be very much comfortable to be corrupt. But this time, because of the pressure, you must really show something. You must really accumulate capital in a very much. And people should show you, should see you that you have this, you have this, you have this. You don't have it is a problem. So we need to decommercialize politics. We need to fight the individual personal merit. We need to revive nationalism. We need to go for patriotism. We need to be real. We need to reflect back. We need to sit back and we say 62 years of independence. Where are they taking us? Are they taking us to steal from the poor? Are they making us to punish a Karamajong? who doesn't know how the government operates, who doesn't know what the government is thinking to rescue him? Should we punish him because things have not reached Moroto and he has not seen it?
Now, the parliament has set up a committee to investigate the matter. Do you think these investigations will be fruitful?
I respect institutions, but I have to say this, that MPs, in their fair mind, they know the real causes. They know the sort of pressures which cause this. Let them be very honest and don't only target the iron sheet saga. They look beyond the other issues, which can be very helpful in understanding this scenario. Because ever since Parliament kicked off, it is scandal after scandal they are handling. It is scandal after scandal, NSCF, Entebbe, what, almost each day if you listen to the news, it is in that direction. Okay, so I would imagine and I would pray that the parliament, let it be very honest, let it be very fair. The committee should be guided by the greater goal, and MPs, when they are discussing this thing, let them be humble, okay? Because this question of enjoying national resources at a personal level, it has not just started, okay? It has not just started. Things are getting lost here and there. I'm sorry, at times you don't allow us to discuss some issues which do with us directly. But I would tell you, our founding father, Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, thought very well and very clear for the country and did a lot of investments for the country. But now most of those investments were chopped off, distributed here and there, and what have you. Then we retreated to the party, where he organized something like a Milton Obote Foundation with a number of subsidiary companies. Today, there is no subsidiary company you are seeing. There were over 7. There is only now one, that is Uganda House Investments, which is not even working at full capacity. So what happened to the 8 subsidiary companies, where we had even Uganda school supplies, making textbooks, making geometry sets, in Mbale making school furniture? Where is that? Okay, the newspaper, the People newspaper, where is it? Should we go to Akokoro and bring back the spirit of Obote that, please, can you restore whatever you did? Okay, what I'm trying to say, I'm not just criticizing the government or the ruling party. I'm saying this is now a Ugandan syndrome.
But now, how do we, because we keep on hearing the ruling government talking about patriotism, nationalism, how can we continue to put that into the hearts and understandably, not just of leaders, but of the entire Ugandan population? What is the best way of doing that? Because this issue of corruption needs to change and needs to change right now. And it seems like this is a long-term plan. So how can we get nationalism into the minds and hearts of people? But secondly, how can we deal with this issue of corruption right now as we are continuously preaching the gospel of nationalism?
It is easy, though it can be a bit costly. The first starting point, let the government empower local councils to have regular meetings, even at least one meeting once in a month, where executive meets the people and they discuss. If it is done across the country, you will know that at local level you have sampled the issues. Maybe you move a little bit further and you ask them to provide some solutions. Those local councils, once they compile their issues, it will be a laboratory for you to learn what is going on. Because when these things are happening of corruption, lack of nationalism, patriotism, you can't see how people are understanding it. Then the other element, which I have mentioned here several times, it is the mistake which this government made in 1986 to ban political parties and to open up political space in 2004-2005 after a period of 20 years. And when they opened up political space, all the political parties are very, very weak. They cannot hold an annual delegate conference. They cannot hold an annual national council because they can't manage the expense and they have not been in the field. You had locked them up, and when you opened, you continued attacking them, talking whatsoever, such that political parties are the ones now who are supposed to sharpen the policies to govern the country. But they sharpen these policies to govern the country in consultation with the people. Now, because you made the situation that they were frozen, they were not operating, by the time you allowed them to operate, you created more districts, and political parties did not have the manpower to feed in candidates to have their structures. So you find that you are ruling the country, you are governing the country, when each political party is having less than a third of effective representation in its structure. Let it be NUP, which is a dominant political party in the parliament. It is a central affair. What of north, what of east, what of south? Okay. If it is UPC, it has been caged somewhere in the north. We are struggling to reach out. If it is DP, it is caged here. So, where are these political parties? Where are these politicians? How can they devolve? How can they throw in national programs, national policies, look at national issues with the facts?
Indeed, we'll have to end it there for now, yes, because of time. But after the quick breather, we are going to talk about matters education now, because we have seen that examination results have been released, and there's a lot of talk about the performances, and so we're going to discuss that. But we hope that this issue of the iron sheets will be sorted and we can get answers as the Ugandan public. And yet arts continues to do better, so we are asking ourselves, what is the problem? Then we are seeing a lot of dropouts. For example, when it comes to P7, that the students who started in P1 were not, many of them dropped out and were not able to sit PLE, and why? And why is there still an issue with poor performances, especially in rural areas? These are so many issues that need to be tackled when it comes to the question of education. But of course, please, Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel in Tebe. The number is in your screen. Do the right thing. Make a reservation and booking today. Use the number right there. So I'm still with Mr. Christopher Lwanga, who is a politician, but also is the head of research and documentation at Uganda People's Congress. And now we turn our attention to the issue of education in Uganda. What have the results from the different levels told you about our education system and sector here in Uganda?
Thanks very much for that important question. But let me introduce myself about the education, because I'm an educationist through and through. I did my primary at Mugongo Church of Uganda, which is Chengera Town Council, then extended to Kako Primary, which is also still Church of Uganda. Then from Kako Primary, proceeded to Namiryango College, Senior 1, Senior 4, then proceeded to Kako Secondary. I did not like the atmosphere there and switched to Lubiri SS, and then from there I switched to the university and I did history, economics, history, geography and education. as my important subject. I graduated in 1987 and I started teaching, but even before that I was teaching to raise some money to get acclimatized to the situation. And my first teaching was at Namiryango, where I taught briefly, switched to Ndeje, stayed there briefly, and then crossed to Zambia, where I had a very wonderful tour from 1989 to 2006. So from Zambia, I switched to Sudan, Eastern Equatorial State in Tolit, where again I continued as a teacher from 2006 to 2009. So my perspective in these things is very broad and specific. I would say, and I would thank all the schools for the results they have produced, because these are very, very challenging times. Before you bring COVID challenges, you bring challenges of running a school which is underfunded. It is not easy. And the underfunding shows itself in several aspects. For us, when we are students or pupils, the target was a class to have 40 and below. That meant that a teacher can easily manage that class at a primary level. When things now continued to secondary level, much as the target remained 40, it was 40 for compulsory subjects, but it could reduce to 10, 20, 15 for subjects which they can share, and still a teacher could maintain. At A level, it was a target of 30 and 30. 30 scientists, 30 arts students. That was more or less the arrangement. Even at the university, we were few, it was only a few subjects like education where you could be more, because the sciences and the arts are combined when you are doing education and their educations. Now, what am I trying to drive at? This government, the parents, the headmasters, and everybody must work towards having a teacher-student ratio of 1 to 40. If you don't have it and you are a powerful established school that you are 80, you are 90, you are 100, you are 70, you know the teaching and learning processes will never take place adequately. Okay? And you are going to produce products with some hidden defects which will show in the long run. Then when we started, each one almost had a library in his desk, because by that time potentially the textbook ratio to a student or to a pupil was 1 to 1. You had your own McKinney for biology, you had your tropical biology, you had your chemistry book, you had your dictionary, you had all the geography books, you had all the history books, no sharing. And when a teacher is teaching in front, he can say, can you open here? What does this statement mean? Because you are less than 40, you are even 40, each one can open, and you hear books making noise, pages being turned. But here is not the scenario. Then when it came to practicals, you have already alluded that science was not well done. A science teacher would sit in front and demonstrate the practical you want to do. Then on your own, you are also given either a Bunsen burner, a test tube, chemicals, and you do the stuff. And the periods for practicals were always double, whether in biology, science, physics. So you are actually practicing, you are doing the stuff, the academics. And then from there, we are assured of very good facilities when we have finished class, when we have finished homework. Okay, relaxation. By the time we went to Namiryango, they had even a rival band which was dying off. Okay, a real rival band. Even Lwanga had one, even Chitovu had one. Those were the sort of standards. Now, with those standards, it was easy to bring up a product like a Mr. Lwanga who is in front of you. Because the education was holistic. Okay, it looked beyond the actual passing. And even within the actual passing, we excelled. Because like in my year, which we share with the, I think, Livingstone Sawanyana, is one of my hobby, we in the same class, human rights. I was the best in geography, paper 2, the whole country. Okay? But the sort of exposure I had, the sort of input we had, we were about 35 in the class, Namiryango College.
But on that, is it now, is that feasible now, especially with the numbers, especially when it comes to, because we have seen the numbers are high in private schools, the numbers are high in public schools, so doesn't that mean we'll have to open and construct more schools?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interfere with you. It is visible if the government identifies it as a key problem. And as they identify it as a key problem, for us who have been operating in several systems in the country, we can advise accordingly. The basic advice I can give is like this. My daughters did much of their primary in Zambia. But Zambia had a problem that they lacked enough classroom blocks. So what did they do? They introduced sessions at primary school level, and the primary school could have as many as 3 sessions. One session very early in the morning, another one follows, then another one is late in the afternoon to compensate for the buildings as you are organizing yourself. Okay? Of course, they also made sure that they employed enough teachers, each one to handle each session. Okay? Now, that one helped to release the pressure, especially at primary. Then this time around, when the new government has been elected, they have gone to recruit 30,000 teachers at one go and put them on the payroll. Then the other aspect they did.
But that's why I'm asking on feasibility, because last week there was a story about how many teachers have been recruited, but government doesn't have the space for them now. A few have been have started working, have been appointed to schools because government doesn't have the funding or the finances. So according with that point on the teacher-student ratio, is it something that's feasible in our time today?
It has to be visible at whatever cost. Okay? They should set benchmarks. That benchmarks, you people, we want you to be 40 per class. And if you said no, 40 per class, to do it we need more teachers, there are more teachers on the streets. Even me now, I can teach if I'm approached. Okay? Though I have to study, the education system, it has changed a lot from the time I last taught here, because I last taught here 88, 87. Okay? But there are so many other teachers in the field, they don't even need to go for retired ones. But to make it as a priority, okay, that please let us have a cutoff of 40. If we have a cutoff of 40, let us also do the lessons. The lesson is previously, when we are working in Uganda, we are teaching not less than a minimum of 18 lessons a week and a maximum of 24. Now if I talk that language, they think that I'm coming from a planet, because each teacher ideally now shoots over 30 within the same school, minus putting on part-time elsewhere. Now me, I was having my 18. If things are very bad, 24. Much of the time I could have time to rest and what have you. Some of my hobbies, the students I taught in Namiryango can give this testimony. Our teachers were never overworked. and our teachers could really find time to do the corrections. Even when I went to Zambia, the lessons were less. And I was in a position to become as if I'm an English teacher. When I'm marking my essay, I'm marking even a full stop, a comma, a capital letter, wrongly placed, paragraph, what have you, and I'm calling each pupil, come here, I want you to reach this level. I want you to reach this level. Do this correction, do that. I was in a position. And even my pupils now, who are now senior citizens, middle cadre, they are still sending greetings that I made their work simpler for their study in the university, for their running the families as knowledgeable people, because I was a history and geography teacher, though I could also help in commerce. They are still sending, and they will watch this. And they will even testify all they are watching.
And so government needs to work on the teacher ratio issue.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but very quickly, in less than a minute, I want you to address, we are seeing Parliament is working on the anti-homosexuality bill. One, do you think it's going to be passed? And two, do you think it will stand the test of time?
I think that one is very sensitive. And it is sorry that you are giving me very little time to comment on it, but I would request the government to have all the stakeholders who can look at it from the moral point of view, from the spiritual, religious point of view. Then as they get those people who can look after in that angle, like the Catholic Church, like the Anglican Church, like the religious council or their body, then they should move to another sensitive body. This is the Medical Council, the Medical Council of Uganda, to advise on the technicality, because there is certain technicalities involved. You follow sports very much. We have this Samenya of South Africa. Samenya had to be asked, where do you want to belong? And Samenya opted to belong to a woman's side. And when she opted to belong there, they said, you still have, is it the genes which are more stronger, we need to subtract them for you to fit. Okay, so that element and such issues only came to public because Samenya is a public figure, but they are supposed to be treated with the confidentiality. So the Medical Council should advise us. Okay, then from there, the politics, the government has to do it. And to do it, they can do it from the executive as a cabinet, they can do it at parliament, they can do it at the judiciary, but it is not enough. This thing requires a regional initiative, such that Uganda would not be seen protecting a Ugandan position. It would be seen, it would make sense that it is protecting an East African position. And it would make sense that it is protecting an AU position. And the AU, East Africa, Uganda should not do it in isolation with the World Health Organization. We must be protecting a position of World Health Organization. We must be protecting a position which is well enlightened, such that at whatever level we have satisfied all the constituencies. This is how I think the government should move.
Indeed, so there are no gaps this time around, and so yes, that this voice can be adequately dealt with, like you said, whether it's in a country level, regional level, or African level. With that, we shall end Issues at Hand this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Christopher Lwanga, for taking us through those issues and for tackling them and for giving us good solutions. I hope every stakeholder, including you and I, we are going to put this advice to good use, heed it, and act on it, so that we have a better country. And we are wishing you a splendid day here on Issues at Hand. Please enjoy the rest of the programming here on Church of Uganda Family TV. God richly bless you.